Good afternoon, Niner fans. We are here. We are live. It is the Monday after the NFL draft, and I got my main man, Ted, alongside me. And today we're going to talk about the NFL draft, give you our thoughts. I did a little post-draft review yesterday, but now I get to get my boy Ted in here, and we'll get to hear his thoughts, his grades, and we'll talk about that. And also there's some Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk rumors that keep on persisting in the media. We'll talk about that and wrap it up pretty quickly today. So, my man Ted, how are you feeling? NFL draft was in the books. How are you doing? Are you feeling like we got a Super Bowl roster after this draft? What's your vibe?
Yeah, I mean, if we can keep Brock upright and healthy, we got the weapons now. There's no doubt about that. And as far as defense goes, I like most of the moves we made, and a little surprised no D lineman, but kind of happy there isn't. I was surprised no offensive tackle and no tight end. Those two I definitely was bummed about, but I could almost call it a victory Monday here.
I think it's a victory Monday.
Yeah.
So, overall, what was your overall grade of the draft? If you had to give it a grade, we like to grade things here. What was your overall grade on the draft, Ted?
Maybe a little bit shy of where I had the free agent class at B-, but like C+, B-.
Okay, C+, B-. I gave it a B. B, maybe close to a B+. I think the day 2 and day 3 picks were really good. They found some gems. I mean, there wasn't like every pick was great. Like you said, they could have used maybe another offensive tackle, but at the positions they were at, they were kind of at the late end of the draft, on most of the picks. In every round, they did the best they can get. Because you got to remember, when you're a good team, you're not picking near the top of the draft. So in every round. So they got the best players they can get in those rounds. They added some guys that could probably start. And, another weapon for Brock. They got 2 really good receivers in this draft that can both beat man coverage. Overall, again, I think they added a lot of elements, not just for this year. I think we talked about it last week when we were saying, hey, it's not just for this year. It's for the future. Next year, they have 39 free agents. And, they also have to make sure that they have players that can replace the guys that are going to leave eventually. You can't pay everybody, and we learn that every year. But so you give it a C-, B, a C+, B- type of grade. Now, we'll go through this, I guess, pick by pick. But before we get to that, who was your favorite pick overall? And was there any other surprises? I know you said no D lineman, but I feel like they addressed that in the free agency where they had, Gross Matos, Jordan Elliott, Malik Collins, and Leonard Floyd. So I feel like they maybe didn't need to get that. But who was your favorite overall pick, and any other surprises in this draft class?
I'd say my favorite overall pick. I mean, I'm going to go with be unpopular here and say Ricky Pearsall.
Okay.
A lot of people are doubting the pick, saying we reached, blah 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 blah. But I like him a lot. I changed my avatar on Twitter and X to that sort of OBJ-like catch that he made.
Okay.
And my banner was a different catch that was pretty nice too, acrobatic catch of his. I think there's just a lot to like. I mean, maybe not for 2024 as much as 2025 and beyond, but I'm really bullish on Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, Ricky. Speaking of that catch, we got to play the highlight. This was the highlight of the weekend. I mean, you see that catch, you're like, whoa. This guy could catch in traffic. He had a lot. Like, his film was fun to watch. But here's the highlight, my man Ted.
Here are the 49ers pick.
With the 31st pick in the 2024 NFL.
Stop calling him Ricky Pearsall and call him what is.
Here are the 49ers pick.
With the 31st pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver, Florida.
So they do take a receiver, and it's Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, Ricky Pearsall is coming off a great year, and somebody who also went to the Senior Bowl and showed up down there. Charles and I saw him down there. Michael Gallup was my comparison. Route polish. And one of the things when you watch him, he's so crisp. When he gets to the top of his route, they appreciate that. This is the best catch anybody had all year long. You won't see a better catch than that one. To be able to haul that one in. Tracking the ball again, outstanding hands. They value that everywhere, but especially with Kyle Shanahan. Can you run through the catch point? Can you run clean routes? And are you reliable with your hands? He's a really good player, CD.
And he'll be one of those guys that shows up early, stays late, absolutely loves ball. Joel? You remember him at Arizona State?
I do. I was just going to say, he was all the way back with Jaden Daniels.
There's certain.
Love the pick. Yeah, the more I look at this pick, the more I like it. And I know a lot of people, when the pick happened, they all wanted a cornerback. They wanted like Cooper DeJean or Kool-Aid McKinstry. And I remember sitting there, I was live, and I was like, I thought it was going to be Cooper because they leaked it, but there was a rat in the building, and the rat leaked the wrong information. That was all the teams, out of all 32 teams, and Niners were the only one with the fake source to leak the pick. So I think everybody kind of was hoping to get the cornerback. And then when you see Ricky Pearsall, you're like, what just happened? Not only that, but you still have Deebo and Brandon Aiyuk. But then as you look at his film and you realize, okay, look, and we're going to get to this, the trade rumors and stuff about Deebo and Aiyuk. Obviously, they were on the phones. Initially, the first day, they were looking at trades and calls and everything, but it didn't materialize. They're going to try to get the contract done with Aiyuk, but it's next year. And according to Nick Wagner, is next year's when you really got to worry about Deebo and Aiyuk. And if they lock up Aiyuk, that kind of puts Deebo Samuel in this weird position where they did try to shop him this year. Next year, his contract is going to be another big hit, right? And you got Brandon Aiyuk that needs to get paid. And then next year, Brock Purdy gets paid. So to me, the odd man out is probably Deebo or maybe Juwan Jennings. And if you look at Ricky Pearsall, he can do it all. That's what Kyle Shanahan said about this guy. He can do it all. He can catch, as you saw, over the middle in that little clip. He can do the jet sweeps. That's something that Deebo does. He can run over the middle. He can go on the outside. He can do a lot of things. And I feel like he's that versatile receiver that Kyle Shanahan looks for in his receivers. And he's physical. He's a guy that's just going to go out there and play tough and take those hits, kind of like Deebo. So if anything, I feel like Ricky Pearsall, he's the replacement for Deebo Samuel. Maybe not this year, but definitely next year. And you know what? They got a guy that Brandon Aiyuk was his former teammate in Arizona State. And I don't know if you saw this, but this was John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan during their press conference. This is what they said that Brandon Aiyuk texted him.
Brandon just texted.
We got on the way in.
Yeah. Fire pick.
No lie.
Can't lie.
So they're planting the seeds for Brandon Aiyuk and Ricky to be the future as they segue out from Deebo. What's your overall thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I love that Brandon Aiyuk loved the pick. I love that Steve Smith loved the pick.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved that C.J. Stroud liked the pick.
Mm-hmm.
He was really jealous that we picked him and the Texans didn't. I like that. Here's the deal. I think both of these wide receivers that we drafted, both Pearsall and Cowing, both show a paradigm shift in the way that Kyle and Lynch and our scouting department are thinking and drafting and scouting, which is away from the Jimmy G, dump the ball off short and make him get yak kind of guys, and now to the Brock Purdy, hey, let him throw deep, where even yak guys aren't going to get a lot of yak in that scenario, but the guys that run good routes, that have good hands, that there's a lot more speed in our skill positions this year. I think our slowest, Pearsall was the slowest at 4.41, right? I mean, Counting
pretty quick.
Garendo 4.33. So, that's really cool. And with Ricky, he's a great route runner, incredible hands, maybe even better hands than a route runner. Great vertical leap. He's a really, really underrated athlete. So when they comp him to these other wide receivers, and I won't say why they do it, but like Cooper Kupp or Adam Thielen, Ricky Pearsall is a lot more athletic than either of those guys. I'm not saying he's going to be better or anything like that, or certainly not this year, but he's our fastest receiver now at 4.41. He has the highest vertical leap. He's a very good route runner, the best hands. Like they said, he's a dog. He's a hard worker. He's a willing blocker. Just a lot to like in this pick long term, and I think it might be shorter term than people think before we start seeing him a lot. Because if you think of Jennings, he's slow and he doesn't have good hands, and so I think there might be people are all saying 2025. I think it might happen a lot sooner than people think, where we start to see Ricky Pearsall pop up on plays, on targets, on making an impact.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that they're going to try to get him in the system, try to get him up to speed, and really give him, more action than we normally see out of a rookie. And I love Jennings, but he might price himself out of the team because, again, next season he's a free agent. So honestly, Jennings, man, as good as he is, and as amazing his performance was in the Super Bowl, if he continues to be like that, he priced himself out. So then you got to get a rookie like this who can step in, and he's going to be, a lot cheaper for the next couple of years than having, to sign a big contract for a receiver. So yeah, definitely a very polished receiver. I think he fits the team, the vibe, and team likes him. Kyle likes him. Kyle said he reminds him of himself, but a lot better in every aspect. So you can see Kyle wishes he was Ricky Pearsall. From head down. I think he wishes him. So overall, was he a reach? I think a lot of people are upset because they may have reached, but this was their guy on their board. They had him. It looks like they had him higher ranked than Xavier Legette, who was also there. Keon Coleman, the other receiver that was taken after that. So yeah, maybe in fans' eyes they reached, but I remember when they drafted Brandon Aiyuk, and a lot of people doubt they reached on him. But this is the guy that the 49ers feel like fits their system. And you also got to remember the new return game this year. They did draft 2 wide receivers. You're going to need a guy that can return the ball very well also to both sides. So I don't know if he gets action as a return man maybe in his rookie season, but you got to realize that's something that's part of this new NFL rules going forward. So overall, I like the pick. It grew on me. I think initially when it happened, I was shocked as everybody else as a Niner fan. But, the future is going to be weird with Brandon Aiyuk and, Deebo moving forward. But right now, they're going to be on the team. They're working towards extending Aiyuk. I want to play the clip that Adam Schefter had today on Pat McAfee, and then we'll get back to the rest of the picks. But let me play this clip real quick, and then we'll talk about it because we do want to talk about these rumors today. Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel. Again, Nick Wagner says it's next year, 2025, when we got to worry about it. But this is what Adam Schefter had to say.
San Francisco 49ers took a couple wide receivers early. What does that mean over there, Ty?
Yeah, Shefty, there was a lot of speculation going into the draft, whether it was, hey, are they going to re-sign Brandon Aiyuk? And then all these rumors came out that Deebo might be getting traded, and they obviously draft Pearsall. Can we assume that both of those guys are going to be staying put in San Francisco, or are they still kind of working through things? And is it possible that one of those guys is on a different team before the start of next year?
Here's where we're at with that, essentially. And by the way, I got one more story about that. When we talk about just how strange the draft is before I answer the question about the Niners. I remember the year I was on the phone with the Rams in the second round. Like, what are we thinking today? Like, there's tight end from, I think it was South Alabama that we really, really like, Gerald Everett. Oh, we like this guy. We'd like to get him. And I'm on the phone with the 49ers. I'm like, what are you thinking in the second round? Like, oh, there's this tight end from South Alabama that we really like, Gerald Everett. And I don't say anything to either one. And I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting to see who gets Gerald Everett today. I sit back, I watch, and the Rams get Gerald Everett, causing the 49ers to fall back in the draft. And in the 5th round that year, the 49ers took a tight end because they didn't get Gerald Everett by the name of George Kittle. So it worked out okay for them that particular year. But in regards to the wide receivers today, I think what happened is at various points during the offseason, they had inquiries about Brandon Aiyuk, and they decided they wanted to try to sign him to a long-term contract that they're still trying to get done. They got a couple of inquiries on Deebo. Nothing got close to getting done. And they said over the weekend, and I believe this is the plan, that the plan right now is to move forward with both those guys. Now, here's the deal. Aiyuk has not signed that contract. He's headed into the last year of his deal. Juwan Jennings is headed into the last year of his deal. And Deebo Samuel is headed into the last year of guaranteed money on his deal that has 2 years left. So clearly, there are wide receiver questions in San Francisco that they're going to have to address. So they got out in front of it this weekend by drafting the 2 wide receivers that they did, including Ricky Pearsall in round 1. And Ricky Pearsall, the funny thing is he wanted to go to San Francisco. That was the place he mentioned before the draft to a few people that he wanted to go to. He winds up there in a perfect spot for him, making some of the catches that he has. And now the Niners don't plan to move on from either of those guys. Now, could that change at some point? Sure, absolutely. And by the way, if there's a team that all of a sudden has a wide receiver injury and makes a big play, could you pry loose one of these guys? It's not what they would like to do. It's not what they're planning to do. It's not what they want to do. But clearly we know that there are some wide receiver questions out in San Francisco right now.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure it out, especially if somebody makes a good offer for one of those guys.
Especially when you got to pay Purdy after this year.
Well, the Purdy is the reason why they're able to have all this right now, though. because he's
correct.
Yeah, so right now they're able to have it all, but it is, that's not a light at the end of the tunnel.
No,
that's another train, brother.
Yeah,
and that is Brock Purdy's contract that is going to be gigantic.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's no hometown discount there because he was, you see, the last pick in the draft, so he didn't get shit for the first couple of years. So that's going to be a big one.
Woo! So there you have it. Again, as we stated, it's probably more for next year. They got their receivers. Now they're kind of planning for that inevitable trade. It seems, Deebo having only one more year of guaranteed money, that's the kicker, because next year you're not tied to him. You can keep Brandon Aiyuk, pay him the money, you bring back Brandon Aiyuk, and then you pay Brock Purdy. How did you do it? Is you loose yourself from Deebo. So what do you think? What's your overall take on that?
I think Deebo will be gone by June of next year, of 2025. At that point, his dead cap hit is something like $6 or $7 million, based off of what we paid him on his signing bonus. And I don't think he'll be on the team in 2020 for the 2025 season.
May not. I think they can always maneuver around the cap space, like if they really want to. And that's the thing, because there's always ways around it. You can always restructure here and cut moves here, and certain money only kicks in at a certain time. So I'm sure they could try to make it work, but at the end of the day, when you have two receivers that you drafted and you can probably save a lot of money, and then you're going to be able to bring in other pieces later down the line, I think it makes sense that, you're probably right. Next year he'll probably be out, which is, unfortunate to hear if you're a Niner fan, Deebo fan. But you also got to realize Trent Williams might be out next year after this season. Who knows? And if you have to get rid of Deebo, you can probably take the money you save from him. And yes, of course, you're going to have to extend Brock, but you might need to be able to sign a big-time left tackle to replace Trent Williams, because let's talk about that. So let's move on from wide receiver and get to some of these other picks. So second pick they made, pick 64, they traded back because I guess my take is, so two offensive linemen were taken right off the board right before the Niners. Roger Rosengarten, who I thought the 49ers probably were going to draft, and then Kingsley Samatea. They traded the Chiefs the pick to move back, and they swapped 5th, 6th picks, and they took Samatea, who's a pretty good tackle, and we gave them a tackle for Patrick Mahomes, and I'm sitting there going, oh, shit, who are we taking? We took a cornerback, and someone in the chat earlier said, the 49ers traditionally don't take a cornerback high in the draft. He's right, and that's like, if you see the tea leaves, if you would have saw that, you probably should have known they weren't going to take a cornerback early, like we thought Cooper DeJean. But I thought maybe that was the best player available. But again, on their board, it was Pearsall. And no defensive tackle was good enough for them to make the team. And again, I feel like they really addressed defensive line in free agency. So then, boom, flash forward, round 2, kind of towards the end of the draft of round 2, they take a cornerback, Renardo Green. Guy is pretty physical, actually very physical, press man cover. He locked down Malik Neighbors in a matchup. I got a video. We'll show that in a minute.
Ricky Pearsall, too.
Yeah, he shut down Ricky Pearsall. The guy's pretty good. He's very physical. He's not tall. That's, I think, the knock on him. He's a shorter corner, but I feel like he could probably play the slot, and he's versatile. You can move him around, kind of like a Jimmy Ward type player, but the 49ers have desperately needed to figure out that nickel spot since K'Wan Williams left. So now you got Lenore, Mooney Ward, and this Renardo Green kid. To me, this was my favorite pick of the draft, actually. What do you think about Renardo Green?
I like him a lot. And just before we wrap up the wide receiver talk, I wanted to also mention one other way we might see Ricky Pearsall in 2024 more sooner than we expected. It was obviously Deebo, typically never plays a full season. So that might be an easy way to get him more reps. But back to corner, back to Renardo Green. Yeah, I like the pick. I like that he's a press man cover guy, a lot like Mooney Ward. So could be the heir apparent to Mooney Ward's position someday. You mentioned height. We don't usually go for the big, tall corners anyway, other than Sherm, and we didn't really draft him. So we didn't draft him. The Seahawks did. So that doesn't concern. My only concerns with Green are really, he's very handsy, and so is he too handsy? Is he going to get a lot of PIs?
Yeah.
In the NFL? And can he play off ball? Because we play a lot of zone. Can he learn to be a little bit better as an off ball? But other than that, I love the pick. He's looks like going to be a great fit. And again, we might see him fairly quickly. I mean, we obviously have Isaac Yiadom and Rock Yassin, who we picked up in the offseason. But I don't think any of those guys are really world beaters. So wouldn't be shocked to see him, mid to late season.
Yeah, no, honestly, I could see him becoming a starter pretty quick because you're right. If you look at the cornerback situation the 49ers have, it's actually a lot better than it has been in years past. And Vader 49er makes a good point. This is actually the highest the 49ers have used a pick on a cornerback in the Lynch and Shanahan era. It's pretty good for them, I think Ambry Thomas might have been before that, and Tarvarius Moore, both third-round picks. But this is a second-round pick, obviously the tail end of the second. But I like the guy. Again, now you have Isaac Yiadom, Chase Lucas, who will probably be a special teamer, Rock Yassin, you got Daryl Luter, who was your rookie last year, you got Sam Womack, Ambry Thomas. This is make or break for him in training camp. And you have, of course, Mooney Ward, Diamo Lenore. So your secondary right now at cornerback, I mean, you have some really good depth now. I love it. They got competition. Renardo Green, man, I love his press conference after his Zoom meeting. He was like, oh, I love this defense. They can hit. They're all savages. They all want to hit you. And he wants to hit, man. Like, this guy wants to hit you in the mouth. I really, really love this pick. Again, it's my favorite pick. Let me see if I have
matchup down here between Malik Neighbors and Renardo Green, the 49ers second-round pick. Here it is. Here's the release. And Green plays it perfectly. He gets it right inside the grill right here, and Neighbors can't get to the ball using all that athletic ability. All right, now, it wasn't perfect. Green played him tough. He pressed him from time to time throughout the game. You watch it down here at the bottom. Good matchup. I mean, Neighbors has those releases. He's got the strength, the speed to kind of push off, all right, and to separate on this comeback. Now, Neighbors wins that one, gets himself a first down, but he's right there. He's sticky. He's right on top of him. And then you look right here. Like here he is, just locked in on the grill. Like you look at him. Watch his feet. Doesn't guess. All right, now, which way is he going? He's going inside, outside. He hasn't determined yet. So open up your hips. Bam. And when Neighbors slips, who's the recipient right there? He's down right there when his knee touches. But there's Renardo Green with the interception. Big play in the game.
Ah, man, he's good, man. I love this guy. Love the pick. I don't know if you saw his draft reaction video. It's floating around somewhere on Twitter. It's kind of like George Pickens. He had no reaction. He gets drafted. He's so focused, and he's just like looking at the TV like, yeah, he just got fucking drafted in the NFL. It was like no hugs. He didn't high five anybody. The pick's in, and he's just recording himself getting drafted. I was like, dude, this guy he's locked down. I love the pick, man. That was my favorite pick. I love Renardo Green already. Malik Neighbors was the number 6 pick in the draft, dude. That's saying a lot. He's very, very physical. So
and some people think he's better than Marvin Harrison Jr. too. So, or could be. So yeah, and you know how the Niners, we love our corners and secondary to be able to hit and play and run fit, and he's got that in spades. Look for Ambry to amble on out of the building sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah, I think one
round compensation, it's just too high.
It's unfortunate because Ambry, they gave him a lot of opportunities, but I think he's going to be out of there this year. One thing you said that I really agree with is, in watching that tape, he's very physical. He's very handsy. In the NFL, will he be called for PI? That's the question. He needs to learn to make sure he doesn't get called in the NFL, because a young corner, when you're coming in and you're really aggressive and you start getting called early on, it messes you up mentally. Because Sauce Gardner was a very handsy cornerback, but he doesn't get called for PIs, So it all depends on how the refs are going to call the game. But this guy is really, really physical at the line.
That's because Sauce was top 10.
yeah, and this guy's not a top 10 guy, so he may not get that privilege, the top 10 privilege that Sauce gets. But there's times I watch Sauce and I'm like, that's fucking PI. But because it's Sauce, they ain't calling it. I love Sauce. That was like one of my favorite corners in the league. So the next pick after that, actually, they finally went offensive line. The fans rejoiced. They took Dominic Cooney, who's actually another versatile guy. He could play pretty much anywhere, but his size and the way he's played mostly is going to be an interior lineman, probably a guard. Also, he could probably start this year. Maybe he might be the future for Aaron Banks if he doesn't come back, because, again, he'll be a free agent next year, and if he plays like he did last year, he might price himself out. And then it brings you to, okay, they passed on San Mateo, and they passed on, Rosengarten. Maybe they weren't as good enough blockers, because in the run game specifically, Kyle needs you to be able to run block and run and be athletic. And I think this guy fits the mold. He's powerful. He's a really good pass protector. He didn't have any sacks or QB hits allowed last year in 343 pass coverage snaps. So that's impressive. He can hold up against the pass, which we need, but he can also run block. So what was your take on Dominic Pooney? Did you like the pick? Did you think he's like, do you see him as a starter? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I could see him as a starter, especially if, Feliciano gets injured again or Banks gets injured again. They both missed time last year, or Feliciano got injured in the Super Bowl. But ultimately, I think it'd be tough for him to crack the starting lineup this year. But like I said, injuries happen. He's played pretty much everywhere. The one place somebody did point out today that one place he didn't play was right guard, which is sort of our glaring need with Spencer Burford. But if you've played right and left tackle, then I don't think, playing right and left guard is any more difficult or, trickier. So I don't think that's a problem at all. He's played center as well, too. So he could be, Brendel's heir apparent at some point as well. But he's kind of like Daniel Brunskill. Now that, Feliciano was Daniel Brunskill for us last year. But now Feliciano is basically probably a starter unless Burford can dethrone him. And so now Pooney is going to be the Brunskill, the jack of all trades who can fill in anywhere, very athletic. And I think he signals another paradigm shift, just like with the wide receivers, where you're talking about he and is it Kingston, the other draft pick later on, Jarrett Kingston. Yeah. Like neither one of them gave up any sacks. And I think there's another paradigm shift on the line going on too, where, like you mentioned, it used to be like Kyle really valued the run blocking over the pass blocking, to the detriment even a lot of times of the pass blocking. And we saw that with like a Mike McGlinchey is a perfect example. An incredible downfield blocker, but couldn't pass protect very well at all, other than here and there. And so maybe I just had this sort of thought as we were doing this, Raj, maybe like Roger Rosengarten, who is very much that old school Kyle, maybe the scouting department wasn't that sad that we missed him.
Yeah.
And they maybe that's why they didn't, push to move up to get him, or tell Kyle to push to move up to get him, because he fits that old mold of like very athletic zone run blocker, but not very good of a pass blocker. And so I think, it's going to be more important moving forward to keep Brock Purdy, clean and upright, and keep guys out of his lap. I mean, even if he doesn't get sacked or hit, if there's a guy in his lap and he has to throw off his back arm, his arm's just not that strong. I mean, he made great improvements in 2023, but his arm, it's not a cannon. Let's be honest. I'd say pretty far from it. So that's another paradigm shift that I saw here. And both linemen are very athletic. They're both very versatile. And good pass blockers. So you got to love that. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I agree into a lot of those points there. And, I feel like that's probably because, again, okay, Rosengarten gets drafted, and then the next available offensive tackle that's probably as high on everybody's board is Sumateo. So you would assume, okay, Niners here coming up. They're coming up to the podium. They're going to take him. So that basically tells me when they passed on him, because, he was there. They could have had him. They passed on him. They probably didn't like those guys as much as they like Green, or, they probably saw, we can get Pooney later. He's a third-round guy. We can wait and get the cornerback we'd really want, because they do need another physical guy. So, it's all strategy. A lot of people, are curious of the picks. And, Rosengarten was there, Sumateo. But if they're not good enough blockers, it would have been a waste of a pick. So now you get a guy like Green who could probably start. Pooney, who, like you said, immediately he could be a versatile swing type guy. He can be that Brunskill type guy. I don't know. Maybe he could play right tackle next year. Maybe he takes Colton McKivitt's spot. Although Colton, that was his first year starting. We don't know what he's going to be able to do this year. Burford, he's played tackle in college. Maybe they kick him to tackle. There was a question in there that says, is Burford on the bubble? Who knows how these guys are going to perform in training camp. I'm sure Burford's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder because he didn't have a strong second year after a pretty good rookie year. So now he's got a chance to kind of really earn his role again. But just looking at the depth right now, I feel like Burford still could make the roster. But, I mean, he was a starter, and he lost that job to Feliciano, who's a 10-year veteran. And Feliciano, I don't think he's going to relinquish that role anytime soon. So, yeah, it's a good question. And then there is a question by my man Maverick. He says, do you think they should have picked up a top center for the future? And I remember talking to Larry Krueger. He thought they were going to take a center, on that 31st pick because, Jake Brendel, he's an undrafted guy. He worked the way up. He's 32. He might be on his last year as a Niner, moving forward. So, it would have made sense for them to get a center. I know Jackson Powers Johnson was a guy that a lot of people wanted, the kid from Oregon. It would have made sense if they would have grabbed a power center, but I feel like they're content right now with Jake Brendel, and I think they're going to save some money that route. And also the guy they drafted later, the kid from USC, what's his name? Kingston, Trotter.
Jarrett Kingston.
Yeah, Jared Kingston. He could play center. He could play a little bit of everything too. So the guys they drafted could play pretty much every spot. And Pooney, he could play center as well. I have this video of him, and he basically said, "Look, I could do it all. Let me play his video."
49ers, you're getting the most versatile lineman in the draft. You're getting somebody who can play center, guard, and tackle both sides. I think nobody else can bring that but me, and I'm excited to get there. Wherever they put me, I'm gonna do my best, try to shine, and help the team win the Super Bowl.
But he said he could play it all. You can put him anywhere. He can play it all, Ted.
I love it. I can't wait to see him shine. It's exciting. Yeah, and like you said, he could move out to tackle at some point. That was what he was listed as during the draft. I don't know if 2025 is realistic, but yeah, in a couple years maybe. Like you mentioned, Burford was also a tackle at UTSA. And I think with Burford, people saying like, oh, he's on his way out the door. I wouldn't say that because I think Jalen Moore is more at risk. Sorry for the repeat there, the pun, but he's been around longer, so he's going to come to the end of his contract sooner. And also, Jalen Moore just hasn't been very good as a tackle, and neither one of them have big price tags. That's the good news for Burford, at least, is that he's a 4th round draft pick or a late 4th round draft pick. So practically a 5th, so pretty low salary. I don't think many of our O linemen are in danger of getting pushed out just yet. I mean, obviously somebody's going to have to go, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. Jalen Moore is a guy that doesn't really do much for me, so I could see him being an odd man out. But yeah, there'll be some competition for the most part. I think it's good that they have some guys that they brought in. At least they drafted 2 guys, and there's competition. Invader Niner says, the undrafted guy from Michigan. He's actually the center they drafted from Michigan. Ed McCaffrey was raving about him when they drafted him. What's his name? I can't. Let me pull it up.
Sure, Drake Nugent.
Nugent from Michigan. That's right, Drake Nugent. This guy's good. He's very good actually, and he could be a sneaky person to kind of hit that roster and maybe be the center of the future. The 49ers have done a good job with undrafted players. I could see them keeping him around. I don't know if he makes the 53, but he'll make the practice squad, and then they'll let him develop, and then next year he might be your starter. Because if you look at Jake Brendel, again, he was an undrafted guy. He stuck around. They kept him around a little bit, and then he ended up becoming a starting center for the team. So I can see Drake the Snake Nugent becoming that, future center pick. I like that was a sneaky little pick there. I liked it. Undrafted.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy with how good that Michigan O-line was, how there weren't many guys drafted highly off of it. They were good as a unit, but I guess individually nobody stood out enough to get drafted really early, which was kind of interesting, I thought. Also, when we're talking about college teams, I had a thought earlier, and I would wait till we talk about our linebacker, but I might forget by then. So I'll just bring it up, which is I think, drafting guys from Florida State was a good idea this year.
Yeah.
Because Florida State, a lot of people may not realize that they were like 13-0 and their quarterback got injured, and they didn't make the tourney because their quarterback got injured, not because they didn't deserve to be there by the teams they had beat this year. And so they had a really good defense. And so to steal 2 of their dogs off their defense, I think, that could have been some of the thought process as to why we would take 2 guys off the same defense in the same draft class.
Oh, no, I agree. Tatum Bethune, he's a dog. Last pick of their draft was Tatum Bethune, pick 251. And you're right. The Florida State Seminoles kind of got disrespected this year because their starting quarterback, he got hurt. And the committee's like, well, you're not good enough for us to make to the playoffs, so we're not going to reward you. And that kind of sucked for them. But that team was undefeated. They were a good team this year. And you're right. Bethune and Renardo Green, two solid players, from that defense. So I feel like the 49ers spent a lot of time in Florida this offseason during scouting because they added a lot of Florida guys. You got Pearsall, you got those two guys, interesting guys that they brought into the team. Now, also moving forward, after they drafted Pooney, who we talked about, they drafted a safety. And, safety was a position that we talked about all offseason. Are they going to get a veteran? How is Hufanga going to be? Is he going to be healthy enough? We don't know. His ACL at recovery, they haven't really said much of it, and that's a big injury. So they went and got this guy from Wake Forest, Malik Mustafa. Holy crap. His tape is so explosive. He's very physical. He's dynamic. He can hit you in the mouth. Good at run defense. He's rangy. This guy's good, man. Malik Mustafa was one of the best tacklers in the nation last year. I love this pick. Renardo was my top pick, and then this is probably my second favorite pick. I love the defensive picks they made. Mustafa could be a starter. I mean, he could probably start too in the future. Tashawn Gibson, we don't know what the hell he's going to do. He might retire. So they needed a safety. They needed depth. This guy checks all the boxes. I was so excited. John Lynch said during his phone call, he's like, you were my favorite interview during the combine. And the kid said, I grew up a Niner fan. So it's destiny.
Now we have one on each side of the ball. Brandon Aiyuk on offense and Mustafa on defense. We talked all offseason how we need a safety, how Gibson's unsigned, he might retire, how Fonga tore his ACL. He may not be the same early in 2024. He may not be the same in all of 2024. Let's be honest, he may not be the same ever. Even if Hufanga is Hufanga week 1 of 2024, he's injury prone. That's why he fell in the draft to the 5th round, was because of his speed, 4.6 speed in the 40, and because of his injury prone nature in college. Nothing major like an ACL in college, but dinged up, banged up, missed quite a bit of time at USC. And so it's not unlikely or unreasonable to think that even if Hufanga makes a full recovery by week 1, we will still need Mustafa to fill in for him at some point during the season. Love this pick. Like you, this is my second favorite pick in the draft.
Yeah, love the pick. And like you said, you never know what's going to happen to injuries. You can't expect Hufanga to be 100% right away. If he is, great. But if not, you need some insurance. And I think this was amazing insurance. Someone in the chat said he looks like Hittner 2.0. He can hit, man. This guy's nice. Shout out to the chat real quick. Want to take a minute. Appreciate everybody. SG Sports Chalk says, how's it going, Raj? How's it going, Ted? How's it going, SG? Definitely appreciate all the chat. We got a lot of people in here today. We got 106 people. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to both channels. If you haven't, you got my man Ted Talks Ball. You got me, RSF 49ers. It's been a fun weekend. It was busy, man. Yesterday, it was nice to just take a break, get out of the house. Because 3 straight days, live streaming, putting all the content. I was tired. I'm not gonna lie. Saturday night, man, I was like, oh God, it's finally over.
Yeah, it was
finally over.
It was a lot. I missed wait, real quick. Let me just address this the thing about Hittner 2.0. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they called that out during the draft. They said a lot like Hittner, a lot like Goldson. But, I would say Goldson because Whitner called himself Hittner, but Goldson was the bigger hitter of the two, let's be honest. Mm-hmm. So I would say he's more like Deshaun Goldson, and I think that's great. Outstanding. Love Dante's, commentating and stuff. But Goldson was a much more fearsome hitter. They were both big hitters. They were kind of the last of the throwback safeties where you could still get away with that stuff. Yeah. But I would say Goldson was bigger. And then where was I going with that? There was something else. What did you bring up after that, Raj? I got sidetracked there.
No, that's pretty much it. I just said, he was like, they called him the Lumber Club, those two hard hitters. That's it. Yeah. But after that pick, which we both loved, Kyle Shanahan couldn't help himself. Kyle Shanahan had to say, okay, it's time to enact my plan. This wouldn't be a 49ers draft class without trading up and getting a running back. It wasn't in the 3rd round. So maybe Kyle's like, 3rd round is bad luck. Let me wait till 4th round. And it's funny because they joked about this after the first night, right? With Papa and Lund on KMBR. Like, oh, we'll probably trade up to get a running back. He's not going to pan out. And they were laughing, and people were like, that's not funny because you're going to do it. And he did it. So they traded up. They traded both of their 5th round picks that they had, and they went up and they traded for Isaac Guerendo. Holy crap. If you watch this guy, he's quick. He ran a 4.33 40. That is so fast. He's got wheels. He's a home run hitter. And I know a lot of people, we got a lot of running backs. What's the one problem we have with our running back too? Elijah Mitchell cannot stay on the field. He cannot stay healthy if his life depended on it, Ted. So you know what? This guy right now is a media upgrade over Elijah Mitchell. He's fast. He can hit those, those holes with quickness. 4.3 40. You give Christian McCaffrey a rest here and there. You put this guy in. You open the hole behind Trent Williams. He gone. I know a lot of people don't like running backs, but with the 49ers offense and the way they run it, it was a good pick. He reminds me a lot of Raheem Mostert, the way he runs. He's quick. He's shifty. I mean, 4.3 40. Look at the Dolphins. They have nothing but speed, and now the 49ers added some more speed onto this offense. I like the pick. It was weird that they traded 2 fifth-round picks because usually fifth-round picks mean money for them, but hey, maybe 2 fifth-round picks becomes this superstar player. What did you think about Isaac Orendo?
Yeah, I like everything I've heard about him. I like the speed. I like the size. I mean, he's almost as big as JP Mason. I like, you know what I really like? I like that he can catch the rock and he can pass block. And there's some talk also that maybe he's less of a threat to Mitchell and Mason as maybe Juszczyk next year, that maybe he'll be a smaller, speedier fullback option with all those skill sets. So that's another angle to take a look at with Garendo. But yeah, I mean, when they called the draft pick, they said, hey, not super productive in college, but this is one of those rare instances where the guy, because of that pass blocking and pass catching ability, could very well be much more productive in the NFL than he was in college. And speaking of college production too, when anybody's looking at Ricky Pearsall and doubting his production for being a first-round draft pick, his 2023 production, keep in mind the Florida QB1 got injured and they had their QB2 or later or some backup quarterback throwing, and he was horrendous and very off target. And with Brock Purdy throwing darts and dimes, short darts and long dimes to Pearsall, expect to see his production skyrocket above what we saw in college with a very inaccurate, inconsistent quarterback. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. In Florida, dude, Pearsall, he had like 3 different quarterbacks basically. And in Florida, man, that quarterback he had last year was just trash can, bottom feeder. He was so bad, and he put up over 1,000 yards. So, and every year in his collegiate career, he got better. Yeah, you got a guy like Brock Purdy who's accurate. He can, throw on the run. We all know how good Brock is, and he's going to get better. This is probably the best quarterback he's ever played for. And, he's already got a little chemistry with Brock. They, both Arizona boys.
Yep.
His interview, he talked about how he remembers playing against Brock Purdy in high school, and Brock dropped 70 points on him. He says, all I could remember was he was in the end zone every time because he was celebrating. So I really like the vibe he's got. And then the other receiver, let's get right to him. The Niners took Jacob Cowing, Arizona wide receiver. This guy is so twitchy, fast. He's a yak guy also. They both have already trained together this offseason in Arizona, both Arizona guys. So they've trained together. This guy was he's a very talented player. They actually brought him in as a top 30 visit. One of the guys they brought in that they did draft. Usually, they bring him in. They bring in a lot of guys. But this guy, I remember a couple weeks ago specifically, and I started looking at him. I was like, well, he's pretty good. Maybe they'll bring him in. And he can fly off the radar. And like we talked about earlier, who knows if Jennings is going to be there? Who knows if Deebo is going to be there next year? They got 2 guys that can be really, really insulated into this lineup, plug and play. And also the return game. We talked about that. The return man, Ray McLeod, he's gone. So now you got a guy who maybe his rookie season could be a return man. And this guy has some elusiveness to him. So what'd you think about the Jacob Cowing pick?
Love it. Other than hands, he's got some questionable hands. But I love that he led the NC2A in receiving yards over the last 3 seasons. That's an incredible production. He's got the speed. I could see him, it's like, he's probably more of a 9 route guy, right? Going deep, taking the top off the defense, forcing 2 safeties deep. Then you got Pearsall doing the deep crossers. And then whoever's left, whether it's Kittle, Deebo, and Aiyuk, tearing up the underneath, getting the yak. It's just like it's everything we've been hoping for such a long time, as long as they turn out to be as advertised. But yeah, he's quick. He's a great route runner. He's tough. He also is a good blocker too. So both him and Pearsall have that reputation of being at least plus blockers, if not really good or very good blockers, but they're willing at the very least, and they've got some experience doing it. So tons of he also has really good short area quickness. So with this new kick return format, that first 10 yards is going to be really important, and he can tear that up. So I could see maybe Pearsall doing punt returns because he's got the better hands. And then maybe Cowling doing kick returns potentially.
Okay,
yeah, a lot like Ray, just a lot faster, and hopefully not trying to pick up a muff punt saying, "Oh, playmaker," because that was his last hurrah.
Yeah, no, you're right. I like it. Again, I agree with you in terms of being a return man type guy. This is a different league now with the new rules, and you need to kind of make sure you're prepared for that. So they got two guys that could do that. Maybe even Trent Taylor, maybe he could be a return man. Who knows? But I like
Trent's
Cowling.
not making the team. Trent's there
with this many receivers on his team.
Trent's a camp body. Let's talk about that. Who are your top six?
I don't know.
Who are your top six, Raj?
Hold up. I don't know, Ted, because
real quick.
Hold on. Trent Taylor might make, because you know who his best friend on the team is? It's
Kittle.
George Kittle. You think
that.
George Kittle is he's gonna march into Kyle Shanahan's room. He's gonna say, "Listen, Kyle, he's gonna take off his jersey. You remember the movie Rudy? He's going to take his jersey off. He's going to put it on his desk. He says, "This is for Trent Taylor." And he's going to walk out. And then Deebo's going to come. "This is for Trent Taylor." Everybody's going to walk in. It's going to be a protest. They're all going to take their jersey off for Trent Taylor. It's going to be led by George. And then when Trent Taylor makes the roster, they're going to say, "Taylor, Taylor, Taylor, Taylor." Like Rudy. They're going to, I'm telling you, Trent Taylor's making this freaking roster.
Then this no longer is my favorite player.
He's going to vouch for his boy. If he does it, I'll be surprised. We might have to make a bet down the line. We'll see how training camp goes. But right now, you got Deebo, Brandon Aiyuk, Juwan Jennings, and you got Ricky Pearsall. Okay, and then you got, I guess, Cowling. Is Cowling going to make it? Ronnie Bell is Ronnie Bell going to make it? And then you got Trent Taylor. Those are the guys.
Conley's 6.
Conley's not going to make it. He'll be practice. Conley would be your practice squatter. He's okay getting practice squad money.
I don't know. After last year's playoffs, I don't think you can risk him. I don't think you can risk him to the practice squad, Raj. I don't think
I'm telling you, George Kittle's going to go in that locker room. Says, "Kyle, if you don't have Trent Taylor on this roster, you don't have George Kittle on your roster."
Maybe we only carry 5 wide receivers this year, Raj.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Trent Taylor does not make the team. You heard it here first.
We'll see.
He does not make the 53-man roster. He might make the practice squad.
We'll see. Trent Taylor making this roster.
No
Taylor.
He's there to mentor these guys. Campus body, / coach. Maybe we make him a coach. I don't know, but he ain't making the 53.
I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how this goes. I can't wait for training camp. Any case, after that, the 49ers drafted another offensive lineman. We mentioned him, offensive line from USC, Jarrett Kingston. I mean, I wasn't blown away, but you're not going to get an elite guy in round 6, 215. We'll see. Maybe, again, depth. You got competition. Maybe they develop him. It's going to take him a year. He's not going to be immediate starter. It's just a guy you develop. Hopefully he can, contribute down the line, but they needed offensive line, and they addressed the offensive line.
That's probably a practice squad guy right there.
I think he's a practice squad off the bat. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because, and that's why we traded the 2 5th-round picks. You mentioned that earlier. And 5th round used to be so money for us. Mm-hmm. But they addressed that before the draft, and they told us, "Hey, guys, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds this year, it's not like it was in years before. Many of those later round day 3 gems are staying in school this year, and it's much better to use those picks to trade up," which we did. So, so I wouldn't be shocked to see him on the practice squad.
Yeah, he'll be a practice squad, and that's a good point. And that's what John said. He goes, this year, the way that college works now, a lot of these guys stay longer, which would normally be their gems because they get the NIL money. If I'm a college football player and I'm like year 4, year 5, and I got another year eligibility, I'm staying in college because guess what? I'm getting paid NIL money. I could go talk to all the baddies, all the co-eds, talk to all the ladies, get millions of dollars. And you know what? I don't have to worry about it. I'll worry about the NFL later. So honestly, it's harder to draft now with the NIL, the transfer portal. It's really changed the game of college football, and it changes how players are drafted. You're not going to get these like gems late. I mean, you might, but it's harder to find gems than it was in the past, as it was in the past. And then after that, the 49ers drafted linebacker, which we noticed. We talked about him already, Tatum Bethune. I think we both like this pick. For the value at a 7th-round pick, you get a guy from Florida State's really solid team. You can't go wrong. The Niners need, they didn't necessarily need linebackers because they drafted 2 good ones last year. They signed Devondre Campbell. They have Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles back. But if there's any position that's a safe position for the 49ers to draft, it's linebacker. They can develop them like nobody's business. Johnny Holland's the best linebackers coach in the league, and it's a safe pick. You go get a linebacker, he'll be a dog. He reminds me of Azeez Al-Shaair. I love the pick.
Yeah, me too. He's outstanding looking on as far as a hitter, and that Florida State defense was tough. Like we said, their whole team got a little devalued from not making the tournament when they really should have and would have if their quarterback had stayed healthy. And then honestly, they really probably should have even with their backup quarterback. Let's be honest. It was just a matter probably of ratings, and they knew they wouldn't get the ratings without that big top name quarterback for the QB to QB battles that they advertise. But ultimately, we got D Winters, we got Jalen Graham, we got him. It'll be interesting to see who gets cut out, but it's going to be a tough battle, and hopefully he can play special teams.
I agree. Now, special teams will probably be where he can make the roster initially in his first year. So definitely something to look forward to. But after that was their 8 picks. I think they did a good job. Like I said, they added some guys for the future. They added some guys that could probably start within this year. Overall, they got rid of the filler picks that they knew weren't going to make it. Like you said, 5th-round picks, they traded them. They got the running back who they really like. He's going to be Elijah Mitchell's replacement. And you got some quality players. Now, after that, undrafted free agents. The 49ers usually do a damn good job in undrafted free agents. Over the years, they've had Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, Jake Brendel, Emmanuel Mosley, Kendrick Bourne. There's probably a few I missed, but those guys have become starters on this team, or at least really important players on this roster. I think Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles too. Like a lot of these players that they get undrafted get to play on the roster. Jordan Mason. So real quick, let's go over these undrafted guys. I mean, not all of them are going to make the roster, but there's some interested guys. They get a lot of dogs here. Let
me say one thing about the draft class too, Raj, because there were 3 paradigm shifts I saw. Wide receivers moving away from yak to route running and/or hands and more speed. Offensive linemen moving away from run blocking more towards pass blocking. In the whole draft, other than maybe Garendo, you really saw the sort of Trey Lance versus Brock Purdy effect of like young traitsy guys with no experience with high upside. We didn't have barely any of those. Maybe Garendo is the only one. Versus the guys like Brock that played 4 years, or a lot of the cases now 5 years with these guys because of the COVID year. And, proven production, 24 years old and up, or 23 and 24, a lot of them. So they're already kind of grown into their man bodies. They don't have to develop as much. They're more ready to play and win now. And that was a huge shift in this draft that I saw.
Yeah, definitely a different type of class they normally have. And it makes sense because guess what? They don't have Adam Peters anymore walking through those doors. So definitely a big difference. And I like that you noticed that because in years past, Adam Peters is there. You felt a different, like it was a certain vibe this draft had. There's like a certain like feeling, right? I felt like way different this year compared to the other. Now I felt good. We'll see how it goes, in 2-3 years, but it definitely was a different vibe than it normally is. So you can definitely feel the paradigm shift. And again, no more Adam Peters, definitely a different type of draft than we saw in the past. So we'll see if it's for the good or not. We'll see how Adam Peters' draft class comes out. He looked very aggressive. He looked like he had a good draft class, but we can't really judge until they hit the field and stuff. So that brings us to undrafted free agent. The first one they grabbed, or the first one reported, was quarterback Tanner Mordecai, Wisconsin Badgers quarterback. This guy's pretty athletic. He's a quick guy. He has a 4.46 speed. He can move, boy. He can move. He played hurt a couple times, but he's tough, fierce competitor. I mean, I don't know if he's going to make the 53-man roster over Brandon Allen, but he at least has a chance.
Please.
He might. He could. Maybe he's your third quarterback, at least practice squad guy, a guy you could develop. But I didn't hate the pick. I was like, okay, I like this guy. He has speed. 4.46 for a quarterback. It's pretty good. What do you think about Tanner Mordecai?
Yeah, I mean, he's playing on a Wisconsin offense that, they're usually more known for their defense and their O-line and their running backs. But ultimately, I'm excited about the pick. Somebody cheap, young, and maybe he could be the back of the future. Maybe he could someday challenge Brock Purdy to his job when he's on his rookie quarterback.
My boy with the
You never know. You never know.
So, crazy.
It is. That's what people said about the people who claimed Brock Purdy was going to do well.
Okay.
So he's opened the door to all those conversations now.
Mr. Irrelevant. He's past the irrelevant stage.
Beyond irrelevant.
Mr. Beyond Irrelevant. Can you imagine? Mr. Beyond Irrelevant makes the holy smoke.
As long as he
Ted
doesn't eat Beyond Burgers,
today.
we're all good. We're fine.
God. Ted came for next. Now this next guy, the undrafted running back from Missouri, Cody Schrader. Okay, this man is an absolute dog. I don't know how he went undrafted, but thank God we have him. He's like the next CMC. Like literally, I don't know if he makes it to the practice. I think you have to keep this man on the roster, but running back is loaded. And the 49ers, undrafted running backs, they do a damn good job. If they didn't have CMC, I would have said this is our future running back one. If they didn't have CMC, this guy could be the running back one on the 49ers roster. Like Schrader, oh my God, I can't believe we got this guy. I'm hyped. I pray to God that he doesn't have to get cut so they can put him on the practice squad, because if they do, he's not surviving a cut.
He gone. Yeah, no. Maybe this is the year we finally trade Elijah Mitchell. We say we got CMC, we got Mason, we got Garendo, and then maybe, just maybe, this guy out of Mizzou, Corey Schrader, can be our running back 4, maybe.
Yeah. I don't think Mitchell gets traded because I don't think he has value. They're going to cut that man. They're going to cut that man like a bad habit. They're going to cut him out of their life. Mason, I think he sticks around, but he's living on borrowed time as well.
Both Mason and Mitchell's contracts are up after 2024. So that's why we got to start keeping other guys or getting them lined up and not exposing them to the practice squad. I don't think you can put either Grando or I keep blanking on his name, Cody Schrader on the practice squad.
And again, some of these guys might make the practice squad. Like 187 says, we've got to cut 30 players. Can't get attached. You're right. We can't get attached, but there's some really quality players as undrafted, and I hope they make it as at least the practice. I hope some of these guys at least make it. Is that
your favorite free agent, undrafted free agent, UDFA?
I think him and the next guy, Drake Nugent. I love this guy. I watched a lot of Michigan ball, so I love their old. And he's a Michigan offensive lineman. He could be a future center starter. I like the guy. I think he's better than Nick Zakelj, who they drafted a couple years ago. I think Nick Zakelj might be out of there, but because he's Brock Purdy's roommate, I think he might have a little leeway, just like Trent Taylor. But
Zakelj was dog meat in camp when we were there.
I know he was so bad when we were there. He was dog water.
Terrible.
I love the Schrader pick. I love the Drake Nugent pick. And then the next pick they had, bro, I'm telling you, this is everybody's favorite pick, Tariq Owens. Listen, the Niner fans were crying all day. I had to hear, Brendan Rice. When are they going to get Brendan Rice?
Frank Gore Jr.
Frank Gore Jr. Oh, they should have got Luke McCaffrey. You know what Kyle Shanahan said? He saw all his burner account. He's like, all right, fine. Let me call T.O. He called, T.O., we're signing your son undrafted, okay? Now tell the Niner fans to calm down. And everybody went fucking ballistic. Oh, they got T.O.'s son. This was a gift for the Niner fans because they were crying about these legacy players. I love it. I love Tariq Owens. I hope he makes the roster. Terrell Owens was happy his son got a chance, but I swear to God, all day on Sunday or Saturday, Brendan Rice, we got to pick. Oh, they picked up Ryan lineman. Fuck that guy. They should have picked Brendan. I mean, all day, Ted, I was like so pissed off. I was like, shut the fuck up, man.
How many cases of his 81 Vineyards wine do you think T.O. sent Shanny for that move?
Oh, he probably sent that man a lifetime supply.
Back up the truck.
I was off the sauce at that. He's like, yeah, we take it's T.O.
Kyle likes to get after it. So.
Oh, he does. He loves it. He loves to get sauced up. Oh my God. But yeah, T.O.'s son, you love to see it. They got a legacy pick. I mean, all week, that's all these people were thinking about. They got to get T.O.'s son. They got to get Frank Gore. They got to get Brendan Rice. I mean,
Luke McCaffrey too. Don't forget, but he went early. He went like end of third round, right?
yeah, he went to the Commanders. And if you watch the draft video, basically Christian McCaffrey called Adam Peters, yo, draft my boy, draft my brother. He said it was an assist thanks to his brother. So good for him. I like that he went to Washington. I honestly was happy that Brendan Rice went to LA. That was my prediction. I made a prediction that day. I said he's going to LA. They need a receiver. Brendan needs to go to a place where he can get a lot of volume targets. It's not the Niners. He would have been wasted on this roster. And the pressure of him having to perform, being Jerry Rice's son in San Francisco, wouldn't have been good for him. I think the perfect fit for him was LA. He played in LA in college, USC. I think he went to the perfect team. They needed a wide receiver too. Harbaugh is going to utilize him the way he needs to utilize him. He'll probably be like a Michael Crabtree in his offense. Perfect fit for Brendan Rice. And I love T.O.'s son. Maybe he makes it to the practice squad.
Big step down, though, going from USC to the Chargers, though, as far as popularity in LA. I mean, SC is probably the second most popular franchise in LA after the Lakers. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I mean, when I was in Huntington Beach, not Huntington, Manhattan and Hermosa, I saw a ton of USC hats. I didn't see any Chargers or Rams hats down there. That's where the Rams had their party. But I tell you what, I saw more Niner hats when I was in.
Yeah, there's a lot more Niner fans in SoCal.
Rams or Chargers. So
there's a lot more Niner fans in SoCal. But you know what? That's good because he doesn't need a lot of pressure right away. Let him build himself. And also, I think Harbaugh is going to make that team popular. I think that's what Harbaugh is going to really resurrect that franchise. I really do. I think he's going to do a good job with them. But yeah, I think that was a really fun pick, the legacy pick. Everybody was happy. The Niner fans were happy. Kyle was like, all right, here's your fucking legacy pick. Hope he could. I hope he makes the practice squad. Because again, if he doesn't make the roster, then we're going to have to deal with, oh, you fucking should have kept Terrell. I can't believe it. Please
we'll be eating popcorn and watching to see what happens.
Pray to God he makes the practice squad, okay?
Right down with the Sharpie.
Yeah. Another guy they brought in was the defensive tackle out of FAU. They gave him a guaranteed like $250,000.
He's practice squad for sure.
He's definitely practice squad. I don't know. Did you see?
At least, yeah.
At least, at the very least. I don't know. I don't have it here, but I posted on Twitter. When he got the call that he's going to the Niners, he ran into the pool. He does a front flip into the pool. He's a big guy. I was like, how's this guy moving? He's and then he gets the champagne. He's popping bottles. I was like, oh, he's on. I said, you got an undrafted contract. And then when you see the contract details, I was like, oh, no wonder he was so hyped. Yeah, he got a guaranteed contract as an undrafted.
Good for him. Yeah, and DT was a big need for us, obviously, with losing Eric Armstead. We obviously got Malik Collins, who looks like he could have better production just by more consistency. But, he's no Eric Armstead, let's be honest. And neither is, as much as we love the name, Jordan Elliott from, content creation and reporting, great guy, Splash Cousin. He's again he's just sort of depth and consistent, not injured much, but not a lot of flash there. So if this guy can give us some flash and some good run stuffing ability, that'll be great to see. Just keep the linebackers clean. That's all you got to do. Keep the linebackers clean.
He's a monster. He's a space eater. He reminds me of DJ Jones. I love the pick. I think he makes the practice squad for sure because he got the guaranteed money. But you're right. I mean, I think they addressed their defensive line in free agency. Again, Yetur Gross-Matos, Jordan Elliott, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd. So when people are surprised that they didn't take a defensive lineman, I think it makes sense when you look at what they did overall in the offseason was, hey, they already did get their defensive lineman. But I tell you what, when the draft pick was coming up, I was like, at 31, I was like, they might go defensive tackle, but they didn't. And I think everybody had a sigh of relief. And then you see, was a receiver. You go back to going, what the fuck are you doing? It was like, okay, they didn't make the Niner pick, and then they did make a Niner pick in a way. So it was funny, but yeah, no defensive tackles drafted. This might be a first time in the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era that they didn't draft.
At least Kyle drafts good receivers late first, early second. So that's Aiyuk and Deebo. So I like that territory for wide receiver for us.
Absolutely, I agree. My man Rod says all you see in Niner gear in LA. Yeah, absolutely. Like we were talking about, so much Niner fans. When we go to Levi's South, I mean, it's the CRM.
Raiders too. Niners and Raiders. Yep.
Yeah. Love to see it. Two more picks that were actually 3 more picks. So they got an offensive lineman. I don't know much
Wait,
about
real quick, Raj. You know how I was crying all off season about Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
And now I just brought up the Raiders. I gotta just say, like, F the Raiders for taking my draft crush.
That was your guy. I know.
Didn't make any sense. It was never gonna happen. I knew that. But just the fact that the Raiders took him after they took Michael Mayer last year, it's like, come on, guys. Come
on.
I mean, you think Gronk and Hernandez, probably the best tight end duo ever. I think this duo could be as good or better. I mean, too bad it's Minshew throwing them the ball, or I guess who'd they get late? Did they get a quarterback late? Maybe I'm thinking.
I don't think they took a quarterback. Vegas didn't take a
I'm
quarterback.
thinking of somebody else who took Spencer Rattler. That was the Saints.
Saints.
Black. There was black and gold, black and silver. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, so a couple more picks. They did get an offensive lineman, Breason Mays out of Southern Mississippi. I don't know much about him. Maybe he'll make practice squad. Maybe it's just they got to fill.
Maybe he's a real OT though, because we wanted a real OT. We wanted a real tight end, and even though the guys that we drafted, both of them have played some tackle, they're not, at least certainly not right away, projected as tackles in the NFL. So maybe this guy could be the tackle or
maybe
swing tackle.
Of the
future. Maybe he could take Jalen Moore's job.
I was just going to say, maybe he's the swing tackle of the future. He takes Jalen Moore's job as he gets a little bit of seasoning. So, yeah, you never know. He's depth. We'll develop him. And maybe Jalen Moore, he gone. Because, again, a lot of free agents next season, and you got to replace them. Then they took Vandy, defensive back Jalen Mahoney. This guy's actually very talented. I thought he'd actually get drafted, and we got him undrafted. This guy was a nice little pick. I think they could stash him on the practice squad, develop him. He's a future player on this team. I like the pick. Definitely, I could see him on the practice squad. I was happy about this pick. I was like, oh, okay, guys really play good.
It's the Harvard of the South, is the way they call it. So
smart guys.
It's a good school academically. Smart guy. You like that in your secondary to have intelligent secondary players, absolutely, so they don't get burned as much. Hopefully,
I agree. And then the last undrafted player, which you said earlier. You were surprised they didn't draft a tight end. I just think at the positions they were at, and John even said it, John and Kyle said, they wanted a tight end, but they couldn't just based on where they were at. They didn't like the guys that they were available. So they got this guy, Mason Peline from Furman, the Paladins. This man, he looks like freaking Adam Thielen. He looks like Adam Thielen 2.0. Bro, I did some research on him. I was talking to Larry Krueger. This guy's a steal. He might be our tight. I think he could be tight end too. I don't know if you saw the press conference after.
Anybody but Latu, I say. So.
Cameron Latu is in the doghouse. Holy crap. When Kyle was let me pull up Cameron Latu.
I was telling you backstage, I had somebody arguing with me on the timeline about Latu and all the catches he made in preseason. I'm like, well, why did we try to sign Brock Wright then from the Lions? And why did Kyle specifically mention tight end as a position that we didn't miss, and Lynch mentioned offensive tackle as a position that we wanted and missed? Like, clearly, that's the first thing I said after the draft. I like the draft. Wish we had drafted an offensive tackle. Wish we had drafted a tight end who can block and catch.
Yeah. And you're right. Tight end is a position they've been seeking desperately. They tried to get Brock Wright, didn't happen. They got the guy from Denver a couple weeks ago. I don't think he's gonna really be great, but they needed another tight end because Cam Latu and Braden Willis just didn't really do much as rookies. I think Braden Willis might be a little better, but we'll see.
I got something to run by you too, Raj.
What's that?
It's kind of a curveball here. But so we didn't draft the tight end, but we did draft in Jared Kingston, a super athletic, multi-positional offensive lineman who used to play tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And people, when we had Jason Poe undrafted, and he had played some fullback prior to eating himself into offensive tackle. A lot of people talked about using him as a sixth lineman, maybe a tackle eligible plays, or maybe he might catch some passes. I don't know. So it's a thought I had, and maybe it's a little cuckoo crazy. I don't know how long ago he played tight end, how relevant, but I know he's super explosive. Both of our linemen are both super athletic freaks for offensive linemen, essentially, as far as their 3-cone, 10-yard splits, even their 40s. So they're both super athletic.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, at this point, the Niners need to do something to get a tight end too. They've been looking, Charlie Warner was a good blocker. Ross Dwelly never really developed into what we thought he was going to be. Latu last year, like you said, he's in the doghouse. You never know. They need a guy that could take some pressure off of George. And also, George Kittle, he's not going to be there forever. He's getting older. So I want to pull up what Kyle Shanahan said about Cameron Latu. Jake Hutchinson clipped, he tweeted out what Kyle had said after the draft. And so Kyle Shanahan said that the 49ers would have liked to get a tight end, but the draft didn't fall that way, right? Like we just said, they asked him if Cam Latu is the 49ers tight end too. He says, no, we look at all the tight ends. He hasn't been out there yet. We like guys to practice first. The guy hasn't even been out there. He says, we need this man to even first practice. He missed last season with the injury. So he's already so behind. He's not tight end two. They need a guy. Maybe this P-line guy could be tight end two. I'm hoping that he can step up because we needed a guy to take some pressure off Kittle. But they've been desperately looking for a tight end. Again, Brock Wright, I thought was going to be the guy.
I mean, it's got to be Salbert at this point, doesn't it? Since he's got experience, as crazy as that.
That's the other guy they got from Denver.
Yeah,
but I don't even know if he's going to be. I don't know, man.
Yeah, is he even going to make the squad? Maybe we only carry 2 tight ends this year.
I think Silver makes it over Cam Latu based on that.
I think you keep Willis too and see if he can learn to block because he's a hell of a receiver. We saw him.
He can catch, yeah, but he can't block.
Catch, and he's fast. He's like a faster, smaller Dwelly. Dwelly had great hands, and so does he.
Yeah, and on 187, yeah, I don't think anybody can replace Kittle, but because you can't replace a legendary tight end, but you need someone to help him, and eventually down the line, they're going to have to draft George Kittle's.
There's one coming out next year, isn't there? That's supposedly better than Brock Bowers.
Yeah, we'll see. Every year there's a great tight end in the draft. So eventually, one day, 49ers are going to have to get the successor to George Kittle. But definitely, it's not going to be an undrafted P-line. I don't know, maybe. Who knows? But, yeah, overall, I think the draft was good. They could have added an offensive tackle. I know that was, I think, the one position we're still uncertain of. I think
Colson Loveland is the guy's name.
Colson Loveland, okay. All right. Yeah, overall, I think I agree with your overall assessment that I wish they would have taken a better right tackle, but I think just what, Kyle and John said, at the position they were at, they just didn't have a guy that was good enough. Because I don't think if they would have drafted Rosengarten or Samatea, I don't know if they would have started right away.
Well, and as much as we wanted a right tackle for the future and maybe could become left tackle, let's face it, right guard was more of a pressing issue in the Super Bowl. McKivitz got blamed for a lot, but really it was Burford coming back in when Feliciano went down. Feliciano's old. He said he's going to retire. This is his last dance. So he said he's going to retire after this season. And Banks is a free agent next year. So it'd be great to have somebody cheap and young to fill in and take his place because even non-Pro Bowl guards are getting big banks of money, and that's not a position that we typically. I mean, let's be honest. We don't like to pay anyone on the O-line except for left tackle. That's it. We don't like to pay center, left guard, right guard, even right tackle.
Yeah.
So, hopefully Pooney can be the left guard heir apparent and fill in for Feliciano, assuming that Burford is still unable to do so.
Yeah, and again, we got to see what McKivitz can do this year. It was his first year starting at right tackle.
Yeah.
I don't want to give him too many excuses. I don't want to give him excuses, but he should improve. Yeah, he had a bad year last year, but hey,
it's just he's not athletic. That's the problem.
He's
never going to be that second level guy like McGlinchey was, whereas McGlinchey theoretically could have improved his pass blocking if he wasn't maybe 6'8", with pencil legs.
It's like Frankenstein. It's like Frankenstein out there. He's just so stiff.
So rigid.
Yeah, very rigid. Last question. Deb says, off topic, but what do you guys think about the Falcons taking Michael Penix Jr.? What was your holy crap? I was so shook when that happened. Were you surprised? What was your take on that?
I'll be honest. I mean, if we're talking right in the moment, I was like, oh yeah, the Falcons need a quarterback because I forgot they had signed Cousins. So I was like, yeah, that's all they need is a quarterback. They did all these moves last offseason and this offseason, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Then when I realized that, oh shoot, they had signed Cousins to 4 years, $100 million. Yeah, it didn't make as much sense. But here's the deal. This is what I said to people that are getting after them. Like, did Kirk Cousins not just tear his Achilles? So Kirk Cousins may not be Kirk Cousins. This is the same as all of our guys. Same as Dre, same as Huff. They may not be the same week 1. They may not be the same 2024. They may not be the same ever again. It's a little bit less concerning with a quarterback because, explosiveness and everything that's not his game. But, if it's his plant foot, trying to throw off his plant foot, and I believe it was, then that's a concern for sure, especially just like redoing it, re-injuring it. So, they say if you see your quarterback, you take him wherever you get the chance to take him. So I don't think I hate it as much as most people.
I mean, initial reaction, I was like, what the hell? Because they had Kirk Cousins and you just paid him all this money. And I saw all the reaction videos of Falcons, and I can understand they're frustrated. But if you look at it long term, you get the quarterback of the future. He can sit back. He doesn't have a lot of pressure. He can take the Aaron Rodgers route where he sits, learns. Jordan Love, right? He did the same thing. He sat back, learned behind a legend. And, he was a first-round pick. You had Aaron Rodgers, and you took this first-round quarterback. And he sat and he waited. He sat and he waited. So I can see them, going the old-school route. But at the same time, in Kirk Cousins' mind, he's like, bro, I got to look over my shoulder. We got this young quarterback ready for them to take my job. So it's going to push him to be better. He'll come in with a chip over his shoulder. Also, you're right. If he does come into the season and he's not 100% and he's injured, or if he's not what he was, guess what? Now they got a quarterback they can develop, and he's a good young franchise-type quarterback. So I think they covered their bases in terms of if Cousins isn't ready to go, okay, you got his backup plan. If he's ready to go and he's amazing, like you think he's going to be, because, he's a good quarterback. If he plays like Kirk Cousins, then Penix sits back or learns from one of the better veteran quarterbacks. So I think
even if Penix gets his chance, if they're waiting for Kirk Cousins to get better, he's injury prone too.
Yeah.
That was why he went 8th. He probably would have been a lot higher if he had been healthy his whole college career. So they have some redundancy for both players. Kirk was known as an Ironman. He had literally not missed, I don't think he'd ever missed a game due to injury till the Achilles. But, he's getting older, and those, the Achilles could pop back up, or it could lead to something else further up the leg.
Sure.
Or it could slow him down to where he gets other things injured because he's getting hit more. So it's just good to have redundancy. And like I said, when you see your quarterback you want, you take him, and you don't worry about where it was.
I mean, it was crazy, though, because
it's by far the most important position in the NFL, by far.
Definitely.
Not even close between. Because everybody goes, well, what's the next, most important position? And people go, oh, defensive end or cornerback or left tackle or wide receiver. But it just depends on the team and the need. The quarterback is the only one that's like across the board everywhere. You got to have a good quarterback.
Yeah, quarterback's important. But after that, they better pray that they have good offensive linemen for both of their quarterbacks. Because you're right. As good as Kirk Cousins has been in avoiding injuries through his career, he is older, and that is a major injury, a torn Achilles. So hopefully they got some good linemen there. And Penix, like you said, he had an injury through his career. And early on in his career, he's going to be running. Rookies be running. So they better make sure they got him protected. But, initially, though, man, I was shook just like everybody else. I was like, what? I mean, Falcons fans were sick, man, because they could have drafted a wide receiver there and gave Cousins an elite weapon. But, I guess I see the vision. So, I mean, I can't be.
No, I'm not saying it wasn't a bad pick, but the other part is too, like if you did want Penix, you couldn't trade back for him. He was going to be gone. There were 2-3 teams in the early teens there that wanted him. So there was no way, if you wanted him, you had to take him there. So there you go.
They had to do what they had to do.
I just don't, it's definitely not a good pick. I'll say that.
It was questionable at the
I just don't hate it as much as most of the mainstream. And
yeah, I agree. I see what you're saying. Ted, any last minute thoughts, questions, concerns? I think we covered everything today. It was a good show.
We're real long here, Raj. I know you got things you got to do. And I got to get my son up, take him, get him out for a little bike riding so that he sleeps well tonight. And
there you go.
I say, tired dog is a good dog. I say the same thing about kids.
That's right. Get that boy tired, man. Appreciate you for hopping on, Ted. Real quick before you go, where can they find you?
Oh, sure. At TedH6 on Twitter next. There it is. At Ted Talks Ball on YouTube. I obviously write a little bit for Sports Illustrated. Not as much during the off season as during the season. But check me out. Give me a like. Give me a subscribe. I really appreciate it. And if you're on my channel, make sure you get over to RSF 49ers and give Raj a like and subscribe to it. He does great things. And just glad to see, I don't know if people know, but he had a channel that was very successful and YouTube was messing with him, and he had to start over, and now he's more than doubled that. And God damn it, you deserve it. I'm proud of you.
Appreciate you, man. You're the man too. I love all the work you put in, and I'm glad you finally got over the 1,000 threshold. But keep grinding, man. You're my boy. I'll see you next week. As always, Mondays with Ted and Raj, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. We will catch you next week. I love you. Have a good night, man. Take care.
Peace. Go Niners.
Later.